had done it again. He defeated the Roman army yet again at Cannae after the decisive victory at Lake Trasimene. Now the Romans were on the brink of defeat. But why didn't they move against Rome? They ended up fighting the Roman army led by Scipio in Africa. Welcome to the final stand of the Roman army at the Battle of Zama. After Cannae, Hannibal found out the list of capable commanders he defeated in battle so far in his campaign. The list included generals like Publius Cornelius Scipio Senior, we mentioned why he's called Senior later on in the episode, Quintus Fabian, Marcus Rufus, Varro Paulius, Servatius Geminius, among others. This list of capable commanders Hannibal defeated would just show the capable genius he was. But Rome still had one hope. Even though he'd been on the list, Marcus Rufus had survived and was still a capable commander because he and Fabian had actually been ambushed by Hannibal. And his fellow consul, who hadn't actually been in battle with Hannibal yet, Publius Scipio Junior, the son of Scipio Senior. Both had former military experience fighting several Italian tribe uprisings, including the Samnites, attacks by Gallic tribes over the Alps, which is why we mentioned Hannibal wasn't the first to go over the Alps, and games. Rufus to be the former gladiator, well, sort of gladiator, grave fighter more like, before being freed by Junior, Scipio that is, when Scipio saw him fighting. Now, Rome kindled hope on them. Hannibal defeated Varro, Paulinus, and Geminius at Cannae. The next dozen years involved tried and failed ambushes and mountain battles by the Romans, while building up their army. Scipio and Rufus had done their job as consuls, which got them 8 years consecutive, which would ultimately only be broken by Augustus and Antony 200 years later. In 204 BC, Scipio decided to invade Spain and then Carthage itself. The idea was bold, but so had Hannibal's crossing of the Alps. So Rufus put the idea to the Senate. The Senate argued over the idea for days, in 7 consecutive meetings, possibly the longest meeting in Rome, we don't know for certain. But it was eventually agreed that Scipio's plan, and Rufus's actually, because Rufus did come up with the Africa idea, was in fact bold, but a good idea. The operation is now called Rome's Last Stand. In February 203 BC, Rufus and Marcus Aurelius, Roman dictator, holding up Hannibal up in the mountains, Scipio departed from Rome's port, heading towards Spain. In April, he arrived and began his Spanish campaign. Straight away, several tribes attacked Scipio, but he defeated them, and ultimately would move against the Carthaginian army, which would be led by several other Carthaginian leaders. Ultimately, we don't know which leader actually led the army, and that led to the Battle of Caritia. The battle was a decisive win for Scipio, and he forced the Carthaginian army out of Spain, annexing the province in the meantime, becoming the first foreign country to be conquered by the Romans. And Scipio would have got a triumph for that, had he not been planning the next conquest already. Hannibal at this point realised the strategy that Scipio was doing and withdrew from Italy, originally planning to defeat Scipio in Africa, before hearing of the Carthaginian army defeat by Scipio. So he sailed back to Carthage and started preparing for the battle between him and Scipio. In June 203, Scipio, who had shored up Spain, and Rufus, who joined his fellow consul in Spain, alongside Laius, who just got command of Spain, left the province and sailed to Africa. This was Scipio and Rufus, where Hannibal heard of their arrival and then rushed to meet them. Scipio and Rufus arrived in Africa, in the north of modern-day Libya, and moved to take the important town of Annaba, which was besieged 4 days after Scipio landed. Hannibal, who had just arrived in the area, thought about attacking Scipio, but realised if he fought Scipio, he'd lose men in the Pyrrhic victory, and then Rufus' army probably could be able to defeat him. So he decided to attack Rufus first, then reinforce his troops from his Numidian allies, then attack Scipio. Just as Hannibal was about to engage Rufus, he received news that Annaba had fallen, and much of the area around it, and Scipio was now closing in on Hannibal's position, which made Hannibal now retreat back towards Zama, where, just outside the city which he knew was advantageous to the Romans, he found the battlefield which he would want. And Hannibal set up the decisive battle, which would see, hopefully, him defeat both the consuls. Scipio commanded 35,000 men, 5,000 of which had been given by the Western Numidian king Massania, which was the great Numidian cavalry. Rufus commanded them on the left, alongside 1,000 Roman cavalry. In the centre was the Roman dictator Lelius. Several sources say he stayed in Italy, while others say he fought at Zama, so for the purpose of this episode, I'll say he did. Lelius commanded 9,000 of new veterans. Scipio commanded the right with 8,000 veterans, 2,000 of which had probably fought at Cannae, another 2,000 probably had fought throughout the war, and 2,000 of which were probably also Numidians, and another 2,000 were probably people who'd been recruited halfway through the war, but probably had fought at several battles. Scipio and Hannibal ordered their forces forward, and Lelius and Rufus' central left met Hannibal's forces in the middle of the battlefield, while Scipio's forces managed to go towards the outflankment. Meanwhile, in the centre, things were going badly for Scipio as well, as Hannibal had let him charge straight through the centre and then surrounded him. Lelius now saw the situation from the top of the hill he was on and knew that he was fighting for survival, as he could see the cavalry retreating as well. Scipio now showed his plan and gave the signal for a minor cavalry group on the left to dart in and around the elephants, throwing spears at the elephants' heads, making them mad. This worked, and the elephants ran over their own cavalry, sending the left panicking back towards Hannibal. Scipio now attacked with all of his troops on the right, as well as the cavalry which had defeated the elephants, pushing all over the offensive. With the elephants also sending troops into disarray, Hannibal now realised that if he was going to lose, then it was best to defend Carthage, so he ran. Hannibal had been defeated, and the Second Punic War was over. But it is not the end of our series on Hannibal, and in our next episode we will look at the Roman invasion of Greece.